Hi everybody, this is Josh Kulp. We are learning Daf Tzadi Chet of Masechet Bava Kamma. I hope everyone had a delightful Pesach and you're ready to get back to some good learning, although you should have been learning during Pesach as well. We have a series of statements by Rabbah in this on this daf, and I wanted to address a methodological issue. And that is something that's done in what's known in Hebrew as Mechkar HaTalmud, and in English as academic Talmud study. One of the main staples differentiating academic Talmud study from traditional yeshiva study is that academics tend to look at things as developing over the course of history and try to trace the ideas and the halachot and the texts and the wording as they developed through the course of history, whereas traditional Talmud study tends to look at things as ageless, timeless, and that we look at everything sort of flat and as if there's this idea and that text and this text, and they're all floating around there in the ether, and we have to make as much sense of them as possible. But again, that's traditional Talmud study, and academic Talmudic study has often one of its main principles has been looking at the development of ideas over time. And one of the main techniques for doing this was to separate the words of Amoraim, the statements of named Amoraic rabbis, from the anonymous commentary, which is called in Hebrew the Stam, or the Stam HaTalmud, the anonymous editorial voice of the Talmud. Separate those so that we can see two different layers within the Talmud. This is called in Hebrew sometimes Shitat Harivadim, the methodology of separating out the layers. And this sugya is an excellent example of this. If you want to read more, I'll give a little bit of a shameless plug for my book with Jason Rogoff, Reconstructing the Talmud Volume 1 and Reconstructing the Talmud Volume 2, where we talk about academic Talmud study and we delve into this issue a lot. I should give credit also to my two main teachers. The academics are most known for this methodology. One of them is Professor David Weiss Halivni, who used to teach at the seminary, the Jewish Theological Seminary, and then at Columbia and is now here in Israel, and Professor Shama Friedman, who also taught at the Jewish Theological Seminary and also lives in Israel, have both been, let's say, the standard bearers of that methodology. And it's something I would encourage you to look at as you're reading this daf, especially if you're sensitive to the Hebrew, although I think you can sense it in the English. We get statement after statement where Rabbah is remarkably lenient on the perpetrator of what seems to be a crime. So, for instance, somebody who throws the coin of his friend into the great sea is exempt. Okay, now the Stam Talmud, the anonymous voice of the Gemara, limits that. They say, that's only when it's in clear water and you can see it, and where he didn't pick it up. They limit it to an extremely limited sense of a set of circumstances, almost making the rule basically writing it out of existence. Rabbah says in the next section, somebody who rubs out the coin of his friend is exempt. And again, the Gemara limits that. Later on, he says somebody who cuts off the ear of his friend's cow is exempt. Somebody who burns the documents of his friend is exempt. These are remarkable leniencies. I think they have to do with Rabbah's theoretical Torah, his doctrine that in order to be liable for damages, the damages have to be done extremely directly, which is a very difficult doctrine, I think. And the Stam Talmud, the anonymous voice of the Talmud, has terrible trouble with it and really limits it to a very small set of circumstances. So that's a methodology I would encourage you as you progress in your Talmud study. I think it's a major contribution of the academic study of Talmud towards our understanding of the development of Talmudic law, perhaps the most important contribution. And I would encourage you to think about it, especially as you grow more sensitive to the Hebrew. And I would encourage you to look at our books. I think that they are something that you would find valuable.
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Sorry. That was Siri thinking I'm talking to her. All right. Have a great week, and I'm glad to have you learning with us.